Years ago, I was introduced to a phenomenon of picking a word of the year that was kind of like a beacon or an overarching theme for the year. And I was kind of curious as to why you would pick one word for the year when life is so variable, right? It changes every day on a daily basis. After all, the word of the year isn't your goals or your resolutions. It's something different. So a year ago, when I finally decided to succumb to something that I found a little intriguing, my eyes were open to why you would want to have a word of the year. So today we're going to talk about some intriguing reasons why it would benefit you. And so how do you come up with this word of the year? And how do you use it after you've selected it? If I thought this was just a fluffy little motivational word and of no significance, I don't think I'd be talking about it. But now that I've lived it, I've embraced it, and I now know how to use that word of the year, I can tell you that I think you're going to want one. So let's help you find the word of the year if you choose in. Well, hello, hello, hello. You are listening to the No Brainers Empowering Possibilities Show. These are dialogues of encouragement with fresh perspectives, invitations to ahas, a little bit of science, and a dash of behavioral psychology, some usable, easy skills to try right now, and a whole lot of creative fun. So if leveling up is on your radar, my friend, you are at the right show. I'm your host, Roseanne Marsh. I'm the author of the teen and parent empowerment curriculum called Level Up, and you are listening to episode number 54, Why You Need a Word of the Year. Years ago, I was introduced to the phenomenon of picking the word of the year that was kind of like this beacon or this overarching theme for your year. And I was kind of curious as to why you would pick one word for the year when really life is variable, right? It changes even on a daily basis. But after all, the word of the year isn't your goals or your resolutions. It's separate from that. It's something different. So a year ago, I finally decided to succumb to something that I found a little intriguing. And my eyes were open to why you would want a word of the year. So today, we're going to talk about some intriguing reasons why this would benefit you. How do you come up with your word of the year? And how do you use your word of the year? So if I thought that was just a fluffy little motivational word and has no significance, I really wouldn't be talking about it. But now that I've lived in it, I've embraced a word and I know how to use that word a little bit better, I can tell you that I think you're going to want a word of the year. Over a year ago, I finally succumbed to what looked like a little bit of a fun activity that I could do to pick a word of the year for myself. I've heard a lot of people say, well, why would I pick a word of the year? Because I don't even know if I'm going to like it the entire year. I probably need a word of the month. And I thought, oh my gosh, if I had to think of a new word every month, I just don't need one more thing on my plate that's not going to serve me. But when I started digging into it a little further as to why people were really felt like having a word of the year was of value to them, and I stepped into it, I was like, oh boy, I now get it. And after all, we have busy lives, and I knew I didn't want one more little thing. I didn't need another poster. I didn't need something to embroider on a pillow for the sake of just being crafty, even though in my past, I have done that sort of thing. If other people have tried this and it has now become an important part of their planning for the new year, hey, I want it in. I wanted to at least have boots on the ground experience to be able to say yay or nay. And I'm here today to say yay. So over a year ago, I launched an episode. That's episode number 6. And you can go back and listen to that. It's, hey, what's your word of the year? And you can listen to it now because it still has a lot of great value. It has 3 different ways that you could pick your word of the year. And these are ones that I had kind of come up with ways that I personally would probably try it. One of them is really fun for your family because after all, your family could have a word of the year. And one of the activities is kind of an icebreaker on how to introduce the word of the year to your family in a fun little way. And then you can go back and help everybody have their own individualized, customized words of the years. Super fun. So go back and listen to that. We're not going to address that one today. But little did I know that from researching and pondering and coming up with what I felt were ways to receive the word of the year, I received a word of the year that, I'm going to be honest, I did not want. Oh man, when I was like, what? Okay, universe, what is the word of the year for me? Holy cow, it came in hard and fast. I went, wait, what? Is that my word of the year? And it came in again. I'm like, whoa, no, 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 no. You know how when you get a fortune in a fortune cookie and you're like, no, I don't want that one. I need another cookie. That was how I felt. It was like crazy. I'm like, I don't want this one. I wouldn't have picked this word because I thought the word of the year was like this motivational cheerleader that, like, hey, keep going. You got the power. You're a rock star. You're unstoppable. But no, the word I got was not that. But what I found was the word I did get was perfect for me, was the perfect word for the year. Now, before I share with you what that word was from last year and why that was a perfect word for me, let's talk about what is the word of the year and what is it not, and how do you find your word and what are some ways that you can use it. So let's start with what the word of the year is not. It is not your goals and your resolutions. Hopefully everybody's had a chance to maybe set some new ones for the year, or at least do your goals. I know I reevaluate on a quarterly basis, but there should be something that we are focusing on, something to expand us. Our brains and our bodies like to progress. If they don't progress, they digress. I tell my kids all the time, when you see like a moving platform in the airport, how it's going along. And if you're standing still, there are people going forward. If we're not progressing, we're being passed at exponential rates only because life goes forward. Standing still, we're actually going backwards. So it's invigorating for our bodies and our minds to have something new to expand ourselves with. And I actually don't even love the word goals, other than everybody knows that word. I actually like to call it a target and a journey, because I love the fact of thinking, this is where I'm aiming, but this is all about my journey. And it seems to be more enjoyable instead of, I'm just not getting there. It's like, no, I am journeying. So before you start thinking about your word of the year, make sure that you've got at least a goal or two or three. I like to set a lot of goals and I find that I just got to condense them back into maybe three. And of course, even if we just have one, that gives us the ability to hyper focus and maybe have more traction than if we get too scattered. So the word of the year is not a goal. It's not a resolution. It's not a target. It's something that calls to you. It's almost like an overarching umbrella that supports. And I'd like to say that it kind of anchors your focus on your particular goals or targets. And you could also say that it's not only an anchor, but it's almost like a lighthouse. It's almost like a guidance beacon for you in your actions, your reactions, and your planning, and what you're going to accomplish in your life. So that's what that word of the year is. It is that anchor and it's that lighthouse. It's that beacon. Now, how can a word have that much power? I mean, really, that seems like a tall order for one little word, or two little words, or three little words. Don't limit yourself if you have several that are coming in, you can't decide. Well, in teaching and developing the curriculum for Level Up Empowering Possibilities, one of the most powerful chapters we have is chapter 2, and that's the power of thoughts and words. And in that, we teach the scientific vibration and frequency of every single word and every emotion. And words take on more power with the emotion that is backed behind them. In fact, if we were to dive into our subconscious, which is basically the culmination of all of our life's experiences, right? We would see that there's lots of highly emotional experiences that we've recorded, and a lot of experiences we record just because we've done them over and over and over and over again. Those thought loops, or those things that we do, those great things like learning to play a piano or a skill or whatever that we do over and over again. And our body is so amazing. I mean, it's got this little recording system, the neurons all over in our body, that it's just recording everything that we experience. It's exquisite. But it's like a computer and it's like a data bank, and it can only access what's been put into it. So when we go to respond to life, the only thing it can do is go into our data banks and go, okay, this new experience just came up. How should I react to that? And it'll go back in the data bank, and the subconscious will go, blah, 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 blah. Well, here are the ways that we have done it in the past. And then we react to life that way. Whether it's right or it's wrong, it's because we've been shaped and formed by our life experiences. And that's why we end up having goals, right? We set ways to improve or change or develop beyond where we are because of our life experiences, or because of the amazing skills and talents we have. We set those goals and talents to even expand even more those beautiful things that we have. But we are literally wrapped in our life experiences. And words have power, and they have a scientific frequency and a vibration. And the words we speak pass through the breath of life. They become even more powerful. Now, words could just be said, but the words that have emotion behind them are highly powerful. And there are those of you out there that can feel the vibration and the frequency of other words. In fact, all of us are capable of that. You've gone into a room before, and there's been some fighting or something that happened before you walked in, and you walk in, you're like, why does this room feel so weird? Or you go into a room where there are people that are excited and energized and enlightened, and it's like you can just feel this uplift because of the scientific frequency and vibration. Now, you've heard of affirmations before, right? Those I am statements, those motivational statements that we say to ourselves. But you know that they don't work unless you put an emotion behind them and a lot of repetition. But when you put emotion behind them, it records in our system. So when we go to react to life, it's like, oh, look, there's a new neural bundle here, and let's use that information. Let's take hold of that I am. Okay, so I get excited about the scientific piece, but so what does that have to do with your word of the year? Everything. Because our intention and our emotion that we put to something is where the energy flows in our life. It's where the focus is. Okay, let's talk about some ideas of how you can come up with your word. Now, there are many that start out thinking months before the year comes up. And even if you're listening to this later in the year, you can start right now. Have a word of the year that's going to guide you until the end of the year. So if this is June when you're hearing this, jump on the wagon and grab that word. So you can be thinking about it months ahead of time. I'm kind of that short person. I like to work in a small amount of time, and I want it to happen. And it's whatever the intention is we set, right? Everybody is individual. One of the helpful ways to get you into the mood of thinking and bringing in and receiving your word of the year is to answer some questions. And it's about going back into last year and kind of a review of what the year was about. And I feel it's always helpful to have a recap of where we've been so that we can decide where we're going and how we're going to get there, and any changes we have to make to be able to get there, to kind of dial in your goals for the year, or set some new ones. As you start answering these questions, you might go, oh, wait, you know what? I think I'm going to add that in, or I'm going to replace that in because I can see it's going to give me more traction to where I want to go. So are you ready to play? Let's get your juices flowing, and let's review a little bit. Last year, the answers that you give are going to be a clue to the support that your word can also give you. So I'm not going to give you a lot of time. There's going to be 8 questions I'm going to give you. Now, you can do this a couple different ways. This first way right now, I am just going to give you a brief time and you're going to have to think of it fast. Now, the reason I'm having you think of it really fast is because I don't want you to go down into your subconscious and then start evaluating the data, and it's going to be pulling in all these situations. And pretty soon the ego starts getting there, and then this self-defeating stuff. And no, we're not going to mire. We're going to just quick, brief, retrieve the first thing that comes. But the second way is you can go back and listen to these questions again, and you can journal them out. What does that do? Yes, you're going to go down in the subconscious, and there's going to be some things that are going to come up, but then you're going to be able to really do a little wrestle with them and think those through. But I think these 8, although they are not comprehensive, I think they're really valuable to help you think. And just did an event with some other amazing friends, and we had 4 hours with a group of women. By the time they went through these questions, they were primed to come up with a word. And what's interesting is some of them have already come with a word that they wanted for the year. And once they went through the day with us, with a meditation and these questions, they came up with different words. Something different came in. I have 4 different ways that you can come up with your word. Maybe you're going to immerse yourself in all 4 of them and come up with the common denominator of all of them. Or maybe it's going to come in so fast, you'll go, already know what it is. Okay, you ready for these questions? Not going to give you much time in between. We're going to refer to last year. Ready? 1. What are some things big and small that sparked joy into your year last year? Number 2, what is the thing that you're most grateful for last year? Number 3, what did you learn that expanded you? Number 4, what did you discover about yourself? Number 5, what are some things you want to let go of to make space for the new year? Number 6, what are some challenges that you look forward to overcoming? Number 7, what are you inviting into your experience this year? So you're letting go, but then you're inviting something in. And number 8, close your eyes if you can. I want you to close your eyes and feel in your heart, what is the word? What is your word? What is coming through? Now, for some of you, did a word come up? And if it didn't, again, we're just priming the pump. We're planting a seed. We're creating a little year in review. And again, to know where we're going, we get there by knowing where we've been. Now, here's another way that you can find your word. You can start paying attention to words that cross your path, things that kind of pull your attention to it. They could come in reading a book, and all of a sudden there's like this word that pops out, or being in a movie, or there's a phrase that hits your radar, or something, or you hear a word and it just kind of piques your interest. Have you ever heard a word and it intrigues you so much, and then you start seeing it repeatedly? So that's one thing you might do, is just start paying attention to the words that are crossing your path and start making a list of those words. And I want to make sure that I don't forget this, but your word of the year can be several different words. You don't have to dial that down just to one. It could be a couple that will resonate. It could even be a phrase. I have a word and I have a jingle or a tagline that goes with it. And remember, your word isn't necessarily somebody else's word. Just because someone else came up with the word, it's like, oh, that sounds fun. Or I think that's kind of, oh, I kind of like that one. Make sure you do the work to see what your word of the year should be. The third way for you to find your word of the year is to look through a word list and then just circle the ones that call to you. It could be that you're going to have 20 words that are circled that really stand out to you. And then go back and kind of either sit with them and then go back and look at them and narrow them down, or maybe you're going to keep a couple of them. If you'd like a list of words to look at, you can find a link in the show notes. It lists over 300 words that you can look at. And remember, this is your word. And it may not be on that list, but that one of those words on the list might springboard you into thinking, oh, maybe it's a different one. Maybe it's this one. Now, the first way is to go into some deep pondering or even meditation, just sitting still and calling in your word. Yes, calling in your word. I mean, it's one thing for us to say, okay, help me find the word. But if you ask the universe, hey, I'm ready to receive my word, that tells the universe that you are open to it. And as you are calling in the word, if it doesn't come in right away, be patient. Sometimes it takes a little more quieting time. And maybe you'll be sitting in carpool waiting for your kids at school, and all of a sudden a word will come in. You're like, holy cow, where did that come from? Know that it's not always necessarily you having to search and find it. There are times when you're open to the universe or your higher power or whatever it is you call it. You can receive a word that can serve as an anchor and a lighthouse for your year. Now, would that not have great value? It's worth a try, right? So last year, I wasn't thrilled with the word that came through. It was like, hit me almost like a rock. And then when I asked again, the same one came in. I was like, whoa, no, this is not my word, not my word, not my word. But as I thought on it for a minute, I went, oh my gosh, it's like the perfect word. Last year, my word was execute. And I can't tell you how many times when I was having a hard time with a goal or wanting to slack off or whatever, it was just like execute would come to me. And it would help me go forward, or it helped me complete, or it was like the definition of my week. What should I get done this week? Well, execute those things, eat the peas on your plate and get these things done. That served me so well. I can't even tell you how many times that word came to me. And yes, I had it right in front of me, so it didn't disappear. But this year, the word that came to me from the universe as I asked to receive was blossom. Such a different word. And it just feels right in my heart this year that yes, blossom. But for us to be able to use the word that we receive, we have to apply the word to us. So the first place is to my goals, to my targets. I have 3 different areas. One is in relationships, one is in physical health, and another one is with my occupation. Think about your goals and then think about, how does my word apply or support that area? So how does blossom apply? Can it support me in my relationships? What does blossom look like in my physical health? What does blossom look like in my occupation? Now, as you thought about your 3 goals, and now I want you to go into the different areas of your life. I mean, we've got finances, you've got mental health, you've got education, you've got self-development, you've got leisure and hobbies. I mean, there's so many different areas, and I could list those out, but you make a list of the different areas. If you had a wheel, what would be those different areas of your life? And put that word in the middle and say, how does that affect my finances? How is it in my education? How is it in my my pursuits or my hobbies? Think about how your word applies to your world, the different categories of your world. How can that word be an anchor for me? And how can it be a lighthouse for me? Now, once you have your word, I want you to expand it. Look up in the dictionary. What does it mean? What does it signify? What are the words that define that word? And a lot of times you will find that those words that define it are amazing support words, and they actually blow open the definition of what that word means. This word is multi-layered. You may think, okay, my little word of blossom means one thing, but when I apply it to certain things, it starts to mushroom in a bigger way. And as you go into the year, then it's going to take on even an additional learning, an additional meaning, and deeper meanings. Oh, guys, it is delicious when you see that the word of the year is really guiding you in the most extraordinary ways. Really dig into the meaning of the word. I even found poetry that had to go with it. I found a meme that had to do with blossom. I found things that signify blossoming. I found a video about blossoming. I found a movie. I just expanded my search of my word and possibilities and found deeper meanings and significance than just the word. And so how are you going to keep that word in front of you? How are you going to make it something that you can see all the time? And remember, and you want to say it with emotion. So what are some things you can do? Well, obviously, to keep it in front of you, it's good to have it visual, or it's good to have it auditory. I write on my mirror with dry erase markers, and you can change things up all the time. Or you can write, how did that word guide me in what? And how am I going to blossom in this? You can put it on Post-it notes in different areas. It's all over in my journal now. You can journal about it. It's in my planner. It's even on some jewelry I made. And yes, it's even on my water bottle. I'm infusing my water with the word. You can make a tagline that goes along with it. For example, last year, it was execute. And I had a movement with it. And we know that adding a movement adds more senses to it, which creates more neural bundles with it. But execute, my tagline was, it's moving me closer to freedom. That word execute for me was my anchor, and it was my lighthouse last year. I hope this has been helpful to see the power that can be behind the word of the year. Yes, I feel it can be an anchor. And yes, I feel it could be a lighthouse, but I also feel like it can be a cheerleader. When we give it thought and pondering, that customized word can come to you. You will see it, you will find it, and it is empowering. I love the words of Henry Nouwen. A new beginning. We must learn to live each day, each hour, yes, each minute as a new beginning, as a unique opportunity to make everything new. Imagine that we could live each moment as a moment pregnant with new life. Imagine that we could live each day as a day full of promises. Imagine that we could walk through the new year always listening to a voice saying to us, I have a gift for you and can't wait for you to see it. Imagine. As always, we are creators and we decide what we want to create in our life. I think the word of the year is such a help. And if you desire to know more information about it, go back on episode number 6. Find that little fun activity for your family. Introduce that to them. Or if you want to know more about the power of thoughts and words, go back to episode number 18. Or as always, you can look us up at levelupteen.com/learn more and join us on the journey of empowering possibilities. Thanks, guys. Thanks for tuning in. See you next week.